All right. Welcome back to Yoga Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Waycott. If you're listening to the podcast right now, this is the final episode of Yoga Insider for 2025, and we are coming up on the end of the year. I feel like around this time of year, everybody's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's almost a new year. I can't believe it's the end of the year. But I can definitely believe it. I am ready to thank 2025 for the lessons and kind of move forward and move ahead from here. It's been the holidays, and I hope that if you're listening, you've been enjoying the holiday season. I am definitely one of those people who could take it or leave it when it comes to Christmas. I'm not one of those people that lives for Christmas time. I do like giving gifts and, some of the little gatherings that happen around the holidays. But yeah, I just don't get super excited or nostalgic for it like other people do. But it's fine. And earlier this month, I actually hosted a little Christmas tea for some of the teachers who have subbed my pre-registered classes for me this past year, and for some of the teachers who have helped out through guest teaching in my 200-hour YTT programs. And this was the first year that I did that. So it feels kind of monumental just because it was special to be reminded that there are people out there who genuinely support the running of my business, even though they all have their own respective businesses themselves. So that was really nice. I kind of felt like hosting my own little self-employed Christmas party. And if you're self-employed, you know that you don't get to have a Christmas party. So I feel like I want to start a new tradition and continue doing that, moving forward. And yeah, I just think it's nice to show your gratitude, even if it's just in a small way, for the people who have been there to help keep things running smoothly. So that was one of the things that I really enjoyed from this past month. And I'm kind of glad that the holidays are over. We went ice skating the other day. A friend of ours rents out the local hockey rink after Christmas and invites everyone to go out skating. And I hadn't been ice skating in so long. I can't even remember the last time I went ice skating. When I was a really, really little kid, I took figure skating lessons. When I first moved from the States to Canada, I remember that was one of the first activities I did was figure skating. And I was really bad at it. And I can confirm that I'm still not very good at skating. And for some reason going into it, I thought that years of consistent yoga asana practice would translate onto the ice, but it didn't. It didn't translate. I was like, this is not the same. But thankfully my husband is a surprisingly good skater. And I was hold my hand and drag me around the ice. But it was actually really fun. I genuinely want to go skating again soon. And anything, if you practice, you'll get better at it. So I don't know, it's good to be bad at things. That's kind of my theme today. And that's been my theme actually for the podcast lately as well, is just be bad at things, learn how to do things, make mistakes, and do them in front of people. I'm on my way tonight to go teach my last yoga classes of the year. It feels like everything's kind of wrapping up right now. Even though it's not we take a break, we just start up again with classes as we normally do next week. But yeah, final classes of the year tonight. And I am really proud of another year teaching fully independently, not having a boss, not having anyone tell me what to do. And yeah, just teaching in a way that feels good. And I'm also super proud of the suspicious amount of yoga teachers that come to my classes. If you want to know where the yoga teachers are, they're at my class. So yeah, I've got super busy classes tonight. It's cool to see that the community that's been created through these classes is just like so committed, and like even on long weekends, even on holidays, like everybody wants to show up for their yoga practice. They don't like to miss it. Yeah, and that just makes me really happy. So yeah, on my way to go teach the last classes of the year and filming the last Yoga Insider episode of the year right now. And, as we wrap up the year, I am definitely reflecting on like what the past few months of creating this show has taught me. And to be honest, there are a lot of parallels between podcasting and having a yoga practice. And it's definitely, this big kind of ongoing lesson in consistency, in showing up on the days when you don't feel like it or when you don't feel prepared, trusting the process, sitting with discomfort, even while things are still evolving. And that's just like really been on my mind the past couple of days. So, when I initially had the idea to start this podcast, it was actually like 5 or 6 years ago. And it was around the same time when I had my own like little subscription platform, and I was creating on-demand yoga classes and people could get a subscription for them. And I kind of pictured the podcast being part of that platform. And I thought about doing it, and then I didn't do it. And I'm actually really glad that I didn't do it back then. Because even though, this was only like 5 or 6 years ago, I was in my mid-20s, like I'm only just over 30 now. And I just don't feel like it would have landed the same way if I'd done the podcast back then. And like, obviously, that's not a lot of years, but like, if you've been in your 20s before, you know how fast the growth is that takes place during that phase of life and like how much you change during those years. And I just feel like if I had started the podcast in my mid-20s, I would have been more reactive. I would have probably gotten myself in trouble with things that I said. I can barely say things now without getting myself in trouble. But I genuinely feel like, as I've grown and like matured even in those last few years, like I've found more clarity in my voice. I'm able to speak from a more grounded place. And I find that I'm able to, not that I do it perfectly, but I am able to acknowledge nuance and complexity better now than I probably could have done back then. And I'm also realizing that like not every thought or belief I have needs to be like perfectly resolved or perfectly set in stone in order to share it and bring like value and curiosity to the table. So I'm glad that I waited to start the podcast. That's like the first thing that I want to say. This feels like the time is now. And Yoga Insider is really about sharing what I know to be true from personal experience, right? So of course, like the podcast is through my lens, and some people are going to resonate with that and other people won't. But when I share from that place of personal experience, I know that the truth will keep evolving as I continue to evolve as a teacher. And that the podcast is really just like a snapshot in time. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a few moments. But I just want to say, like, one of the things that I'm so grateful for, if you are a listener of the podcast, is when you send me a message or you write a little comment and you say like, yes, this resonates with me. And I feel like sometimes all we need is somebody saying out loud the thoughts that we are already having internally. Like, there's just something so affirming about that. And it's also like a nice reminder that there is a community on the other side of this podcast and that there are people who are listening and getting value from the podcast. And when you message me and you say like, hey, I'm working on, a new yoga series or a new workshop or whatever, and like I got a lot of value or inspiration from the podcast, like that means so much, because some days it does feel like, oh, I'm just sitting here talking into a microphone, like talking to myself. And yeah, those little comments and those little messages that you send me just really remind me like, yes, like there are real yoga teachers on the other side of this podcast and you are listening. And getting value from what you're hearing. So I really appreciate that. And in my most recent newsletter, I send out like a monthly email every month. I did like a little 2025 Yoga Insider Wrapped, kind of like Spotify Wrapped. And I just kind of highlighted like how many hours of content we've put out and how many episodes we put out and your top episodes. And like we have listeners in 20 countries already, which is one of the things that like stands out to me the most, even after just a few months of podcasting, to already have a global reach and to know that there's teachers in 20 countries listening to the podcast is just like mind-blowing. And I just like, that's my favorite thing. I can't wait to see where we're at in a year and like what kind of magic has transpired. So yeah, that was really fun. And actually just on a little tangent as well, like related to my newsletter, this is not about the podcast, but this is just a chatty episode. Sometimes in my yoga newsletter, I will put like workshops or special classes that are basically only available to like newsletter subscribers. And I find that it works really well because I have like a super engaged email list, even though it's not that big. The people who receive my emails, they open them, they click things, they want to read the emails. And I recently decided to put together kind of like a special vinyasa yoga class where I can be a little bit bolder with my music. And like, if you've practiced with me in real life, because I know there's a lot of like real life practitioners who listen to this podcast, you know that I like to be kind of unconventional with my yoga playlist a lot of times, especially in vinyasa yoga classes. I am just a huge music appreciator. I love to pull in music from so many different genres. And I truly believe that there's a way to use music artfully in a yoga class in a way that doesn't distract or pull away from the practice, but actually like pulls you deeper into a place of feeling. And like for me, music definitely has a time and place, and some of my favorite yoga teachers in the world are really big, like music users. That sounds really weird. But like some of my favorite yoga teachers also use music like really skillfully in their classes. So anyways, I am running a little bit later in January a like R&B vinyasa yoga class. And like that's it. It's literally just a regular vinyasa yoga class, but it's a chance for me to just be a little more like explicit with the music and be like, hey, we're going to have a fun playlist and it's not going to be your typical yoga music. There might be some, adult themes in the songs or whatever. And if that's your jam, like come practice with me. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. Just, I don't know, I think it's going to turn into something fun. So this is like my first round, just like a little test class, and we'll go from there. But one day I want to figure out a way to like DJ my own yoga class, but also teach the yoga class. Like, I don't know, it'll come, but like in another universe, I am a DJ. So anyways, that's my tangent. But yeah, no, having the podcast has been really, really great. And one of the philosophies that I find myself adopting lately, just kind of with all of this, is that with any sort of creative endeavor, like what you're putting out there is essentially a snapshot in time. And we talked about this a little bit in the episode where I brought Kyler on the podcast, and we talked about digital content creation for yoga teachers and kind of like the behind the scenes of that. And we talked about this concept, and it's definitely something that I've learned from him, like being a music producer. But that philosophy has helped me so much in the making of this podcast. Like every time I show up to podcast, just that mindset that like it doesn't have to be perfect. My thoughts don't have to be completely formed or fully baked. And like there's going to be days where, I show up and I'm not feeling my best or sounding my best or whatever it is. And like it is what it is. And like you put your content out there anyways. And I just find that that has been really, really helpful for me as somebody who does have some perfectionist kind of tendencies and like wants things to go a certain way. That has been a really beautiful lesson in like letting go these past few months. So every time I show up to podcast, I'm like, this is going to be what it is. What you get is what you get. And obviously for a lot of the episodes, there's thought and there's planning that goes into it. I'm not typically talking off the top of my head, except today. But just, that mindset going into it really just helps me like continue and keep going, because I think that it would be so easy to get caught up in the little imperfections and the mistakes, or, I feel like I contradicted myself, when I said this and then I said this. Like, you got to just put it out there and keep going. And that's really, really been helping me. So, yeah. And yeah, I think like that's just a lesson that like imperfection is what makes things human and what makes things real. And, whether it's art or a creative pursuit or even like teaching a yoga class, you can't control the way that your work is perceived at the end of the day. Like you can be so thoughtful and so skillful and put so much time and care into what you're doing. But when you release your project or your class or whatever it is out into the world, like you truly have to let go, and you don't get to dictate how it lands for other people. Like it's up to them to determine how they perceive your work, the meaning that they derive from your work. And like, if you've read Rick Rubin's book, A Way of Being, I feel like he talks about that a lot, like that kind of concept that like you need to put your stuff out there and just let it go. And so, it's a good lesson as well in just like doing your work and doing the work that you are passionate about, doing the work that needs to be done, and releasing the outcomes, right? Like not being attached to the fruits of your labor, essentially. And that's a teaching that comes up in the yoga practice as well. So that's really something that I'm sitting with lately. And I find it helpful just, so that I'm not getting caught up or getting stuck on little details. Because whenever I think about like, when people talk about like regrets that they have at the end of their life or whatnot, it's often about things that they didn't do. It's often like, I didn't take action on that thing that I wish I took action on, or I didn't express or like say that thing I wanted to say. And I'm also trying to remind myself of that. Like, no, the podcast is a good thing. Like, keep saying the things that you think yoga teachers need to hear. Keep reflecting on your own experience and just put it out there anyways, even if it isn't perfect. So again, if you've been listening to the podcast these last few months, I am just so grateful that you've stuck around while I'm learning in public and fumbling and figuring it out in public in front of you. That means a lot to me. So I'm excited to see where the podcast goes. I trust that it will evolve over time and become exactly what it needs to become, even if I don't have a clear vision of what that is yet. It's okay. So I'm going to leave you with that for today. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your holiday season, and I'll catch you in the new year on Yoga Insider. Bye.